Story of Civilization. Part 2, The Life of Greece, being a history of Greek civilization from the beginnings and of civilization in the Near East from the death of Alexander, the Roman conquest with an introduction to prehistoric culture of Crete by Durant. Chapter 27, The Art of Dispersion. Section 1, a Miscellany. The decline of Greek civilization was longest deferred in the sphere of art. Here the Hellenistic age bears comparison not only in fertility, but even in originality with any period in history. Certainly the minor arts suffered no deterioration. Skilled workers in wood, ivory, silver, and gold were scattered throughout the expanded Greek world. The engraving of gems and coins now reached its highest excellence as far east as Bactria. Hellenized kings lavished art upon their currency, and in the west the decadrachma of Hieron II might be defended as the finest coin in numismatic record. Alexandria became famous for its goldsmiths and silversmiths, whose artistry rivaled the faultless style of its poets. For its delightful cameos, precious stones or shells carved in colored relief, or its blue or green faience, its skillfully glazed pottery, its delicately designed and many-colored glass. The Portland vase, very likely a product of Alexandria, shows this art at its best. Elegant figures cut into a layer of milky white glass, superimposed upon a body of blue glass. This is, so to speak, the Josiah Wedgwood masterpiece of antiquity. It derives its name from the Duke of Portland, who bought it in Rome. It is now in the British Museum. Other than Portland, Oregon and Portland, Maine, I don't really know much about that name. Music remained popular in all classes of the population. Scales and modes changed in the direction of refinement and novelty. Transient discords were changed in the direction, were admitted into harmony. Instruments and compositions increased in complexity. Towards 240 BCE at Alexandria, the old pipes of Pan were enlarged into an organ of bronze pipes, and about 175 BCE, Ctesibius improved this into an organ operated by a combination of water and air, and enabling the player to control vast waves of sound. We know nothing more of its construction, but we shall see how rapidly it developed in Roman days into the organ of Christian modern times. Instruments were combined into orchestras, and semi-symphonic performances of purely instrumental music, sometimes in 5 movements, were given in the theaters of Alexandria, Athens, and Syracuse. Professional virtuosos rose to great prominence and to a social standing commensurate with their high fees. About 318 BCE, Aristoxenus of Taras, a pupil of Aristotle, wrote a small treatise, Harmonics, which became the classic ancient text in musical theory. Aristoxenus was a very serious man. Like most philosophers, he did not enjoy the music of his time. Athanas represents him as saying, in words that many generations have heard, we also, since the theaters have become completely barbarized, and since music has become utterly ruined and vulgar, we, being but a few, will recall to our minds, sitting by ourselves, what music used to be. Well, I will say that music theory has made the latter corn worse than the early corn. The latter tool worse than the early tool. The latter Rob Zombie, White Zombie worse than, the initial, years. And there's some other examples. The first one to bring up that, yeah, there was technical improvements or technical achievements or something, but was it really better because it was technically better? The architecture of Hellenistic age cannot impress us, for time has leveled it away with indiscriminate hostility, and yet we know from literature and the remains that the Greek building art spread its sway in this period from Bactria to Spain. The mutual influence of Greece and the Orient brought in a mixture of styles. The colonnade and the architrave invaded Inner Asia, while the arc and the vault and the cupola entered the west. Even so ancient and Hellenic center as Delos raised in Egyptian and Persian capitals, the Doric order seems too stern and stiff for an age that loved refinement and ornament. It gave ground city by city, while the ornate Corinthian style advanced to its highest excellence. The secularization of art kept pace with the secularization of government, law, morals, letters, and philosophy. Stoas, porticos, marketplaces, courts, assembly rooms, libraries, theaters, gymnasiums, and baths began to crowd out the temples and regal or private palaces. It gave a new outlet to the Greek design and decoration. Domestic interiors were adorned with paintings, statues, and wall reliefs. Private gardens surrounded the more palatial homes. Royal parks, gardens, lakes, and pavilions were built in the capitals and were usually open to public use. Town planning developed as a sister art to architecture. Streets were laid out on Hippodamus' regular scheme, with main avenues as wide as 30 feet and ample width for horse and chariot days. Smyrna boasted of paved thoroughfares, but presumably most Hellenistic streets were trampled dirt and knew all the vicissitudes of mud. Fine buildings developed beyond any precedent at Athens in the 2nd century. The lofty Corinthian columns of the Olympium were set up, and the general design of the extended edifice, the most magnificent in Athens, was laid down by Roman architect Cossypius, a strange inversion of Rome's usual dependence upon the artists of Greece. Livy described this temple of the Olympian Zeus as the only structure he had ever seen that could be a fit dwelling for the god of gods. 16 columns of it stands, the most beautiful existing specimens of the Corinthian style. At Eleusis, the dying piety of Athens and the genius of Philon completed the majestic temple of the mysteries, which Pericles had begun on a site already sacred in Machnaean times. Only fragments are left, but some of them show Greek design and carving skill at their best. At Delos, the French have excavated the ground plan of Apollo's sanctuary and have revealed a city once crowded with edifices devoted to a commerce or the protection of 100 Greek or foreign gods. At Syracuse, Hieron II raised many impressive buildings and restored and enlarged the extant municipal theater. To this day, we may read his name on its stones. In Egypt, the Ptolemies adorned Alexandria with edifices that gave the city a reputation for beauty, but no sign of them survives, because people wanted meaning, right? They didn't just want something pretty on the walls. They weren't going to preserve it just because it was entertaining. Well, there are other factors, but you know what I mean. Ptolemy III erected at Edfu a temple which is the noblest architectural relic of the Grecian occupation, and his successors built or rebuilt the temple of Isis and Philae in Ionia. New homes were given to what were considered to be gods at Miletus, Priene, Magnesia, and elsewhere. The third temple of Artemis at Ephesus was finished about 300 BCE. A still vaster fane was raised by the architects Paanius and Daphnis Didumna, at Didumna near Miletus in honor of Apollo, 332 BCE, 241 of the Common Era. Some drums of the superb Ionic columns still remain at Pergamum. Eumenes II made his capital the talk of Greece by building, among many noble structures, that famous altar to Zeus, which the Germans exhumed in 1878 and have skillfully reconstructed in the Pergamum Museum in Berlin, a majestic flight of steps mounted between two porticos to a spacious colonnade court, and around 130 feet at the base ran a frieze as supreme in its period as that of the mausoleum in the 4th century, of the Parthenon in the 5th. Never had Greece been so handsomely adorned, and never had the enthusiasm of its citizens and the skill of its artists transformed with such splendor so many habitations and I can't speak as well today. Trying to restore my breathing after the smoke. I don't know what the air quality is. That doesn't seem as good as past years.